At the end of your life, what will be your legacy? What will you leave behind for future generations? For the world, join the World Messenger, Izabela Lundberg, each week as she brings you a new distinguished guest from the business, sports, or entertainment world to share their success, their struggles, and their lessons. They will share their insights into current hot topics that affect everyone. Izabela facilitates an intimate, vulnerable environment to find the true value of humanity and real leadership. Are you ready for your legacy? The legacy that matters?
Hello, my beautiful friends. It's Izabela Lundberg here, the World Messenger, and I'm inviting you for another epic episode of Legacy Leader Show. And you guys seriously are for the treat. I absolutely cannot wait to introduce you to today's guest, who is super accomplished, but yet insanely humble, down to earth. And you guys cannot wait to hear stories he has to tell. He's Navy SEAL for over 30 years, who just retired and is transitioning from military into civilian world, has so many amazing stories and places he's been, things he accomplished, and yet how he's helping and giving hands to people in his community and beyond. Not only he is also a being producer, fellow producer, who is also providing great production for veterans in transition on the show called Jewel TV, which he will tell us more about in specific series around that, being executive producer and host, as well veteran advocate. And at the same time, someone who has strong, keen sense and passion for leadership, which we cannot wait to depict about that as well. And he is also doing some really cool things, which is Various and Whiskey Club, which I really want to know more about it as ambassador and much more. So without further ado, right now in front of you guys is the Top Gun Navy SEAL, Tim Fredrick. Tim, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely. First of all, Tim, thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. This is really awesome because everybody under the sun is always curious about Top Gun movie and Navy SEALs movies. So it's like those two always rule. Why? Whatever happens in the air and whatever happens down in the ground or below the ground or on the water, right?
Well, I think a lot of people find both entertaining in their own way. I know that the Navy in general, with those two movies, they're recruiting. Even though we're having some recruiting issues currently, their recruiting was really boosted in, I think, 87 when the first Top Gun came out, in 1990, the summer of 90 when Navy SEALs movie with Charlie Sheen and Michael Biehn came out. And then we just had the latest Top Gun movie that I'm sure can't be hurting the Navy's recruiting effort, because I thought it was a good movie. I thought second Top Gun was better than the first, but I'm sure everybody's got their own opinions on those movies. So.
I have to agree. I think it was definitely better. And it was just like the more heart, more maturity, more amazing technology. And it was just like one of those things that you just were breathless. But I love what you also mentioned. At that era, there were two amazing films that really moved the needle. And could you tell us, how did you, first of all, where did you grow up and how did you even enlist and desired and then became the amazing or awarded a successful Navy SEAL with a full career?
Well, I was born in Natchez, Mississippi, raised in a small town, Fedrick, Louisiana, and later went to New Orleans, Louisiana for my middle school years, and ended up in Tennessee, Seymour, Tennessee, where I graduated high school. Played baseball, played football, loved sports, loved to talk about sports, loved fantasy football, all that. But played baseball, played both sports. I was a little bit better in baseball due to my size, probably, mostly. And so I had some small colleges that offered me a baseball scholarship. And I was really leaning toward going that route. And I graduated. And then the Navy SEALs movie came out. I've said it before, my friends, you know, it's some people will call it a cheesy movie now, based off of all the operating that we've done since 9/11 of 01. Yes. So, but it definitely left a mark on me. I thought it was a very cool looking job. And then instead of going into a baseball career at a small college in East Tennessee, I ended up joining the Navy with the goal of being a Navy SEAL.
Wow, what an amazing trajectory, and then like a desire and wish, and you made it happen. So to put in perspective, since we also have an insanely global audience of the Legacy Leader Show here, do you mind telling people that just see the cool stuff and they think Navy SEALs are abnormal because no human can possibly do this? What types of training and some of the missions that publicly you can share Navy SEAL contributes significantly? Because people think everything, it's like in America, it's a movie, it's not real. And in reality, they don't understand how many times you guys stepped in so many missions and turned things around.
Yeah, it's no question that SEALs and all of the Special Operations Forces, pick a service, they're all doing great things. In fact, all of the services, non-SOL, non-Spec Ops, are doing great work around the globe. But with SEALs specifically, we thrive in the undersea environment. We thrive in and around the ocean. We've trained that way from day one of basic underwater demolition, SEAL training. That's BUDS, is what it's also known as. And I was in BUDS class 199. So I went to BUDS in 94, and I was in the fleet. I didn't get to go right into the teams, the SEAL teams, when I graduated high school. I went to the fleet. It turned out, even though I wanted to go to BUDS and not go to the fleet was very rewarding. And it's something that I wouldn't change in hindsight, looking back a bit. Although I have to admit, at the time I was wanting to go straight into BUDS, and a little upset, but I dealt with it and moved on and made the best of it. But we're operating around the globe. You got your SDVs, 2 commands, East and one out in Hawaii, East Coast and Norfolk, Virginia, that do great work in the undersea environment. And we're not limited to the sea. Obviously, you've probably heard of the SEALs operating in the middle of the desert in Afghanistan and landlocked countries. So we operate around the world. We definitely, the water is our home, so we thrive in that domain, but it doesn't limit us to operate anywhere, whether it's taking a ship down or doing close quarters combat or MALT training anywhere in the world, from Somalia, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and you can go on and on with those locations.
Wow, what an amazing adaptation, not only in very hard and harsh environments that are also extremely hot or desert or desolate or dangerous, depending on what you're also tackling. And today we see a lot of interesting stuff that are going on around the world. So it's great to see how you contribute on so many amazing missions to make a difference, to protect civilians, to make impact, and also obviously to contribute and protect our nation, United States of America, right?
Absolutely, and we have great partners that around the world that assist us, and by no means is this list all included, but super operators like the Australian SAS, the British SAS, SBS, and just the SOF operators, whether it be in the undersea environment that we operate with and partner up with, or your air commandos and the various forces. But can't do anything alone, really. No matter how well an organization or people are trained, you got to have partners, and good partners at that, because you always need someone to have your back and someone that you can count on when you need it. And sometimes you really need some assistance outside of what you bring to the table.
I love that. And then everybody, again, listening to watching this Legacy Leader Show, it's so important to really rely on those trusted partners outside of organization or mindset or already doctrine you're trained in, because that's also how we learn from each other, which also really shows another epic strength. Beside your physical and emotional, meaning emotional capacity, intelligence, and social capacity, intelligence, also, it's a reflection of tremendous leadership. So do you mind sharing a little bit about how did you tap into tremendous leadership? Because you Okay, I have to really point this out for everybody that's been in military, specifically in such a specialized operations like TEM, and being so far from home to manage to also have a beautiful wife and marriage and kids and still do what he needs to do and do this successfully for 30 years takes so much toll on you, but also takes so much of deeply, deeply being grounded and knowing what you're doing. And could you tell us, how did you juggle all of this? How did you really made all this happen?
Well, and I mean, when someone is young and you just come into the Navy, and I learned a lot in the fleet, had some great officers and senior enlisted personnel that I looked up there. And then in the teams from 94 on to the end of 2021, I've had some great leaders. And when you're young and you're impressionable, you look up to the leaders that you consider, and most of your other teammates, if not all of your other teammates, to be outstanding leaders. You'll trust them anywhere, whether it be in an administrative type environment or in combat. And you can't get much more dynamic of an environment in combat. So you really see who the good leaders are, and you see who needs some additional work. But you take the good from everybody, but especially those good leaders. And there's a lot of things that I still do to this date, whether it's military related or just leadership related in general, that I take from these great officers and senior enlisted folks that I was fortunate enough to learn under, that gets me through basically anything that I do, and that applies to anybody. The work-life balance, and I brought this up in our discussions before we came on the air, is something that I've seen out of my 31 plus years in the military, and then growing up prior to the end up until I graduated high school. I've seen very few people, you can probably count them on one hand, that effectively managed that work-life balance without shortchanging work or shortchanging their family. And then if someone were to look at my background, and there's a saying that's out there, jack of all trades, master of none. I have a lot of qualifications within my community. Most all of them came when I was enlisted, and I left the enlisted ranks at 15-year mark. So there was a lot of qualifications, a lot of workups, and a lot of deployments, minimum of 6 months. So you tell me how that work-life balance shook out when you go to all those schools, some of them 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. You got those 1.5 year workups, those year deployments. And then, oh, by the way, 9/11 happens. And then our workup and deployment schedules expedited further. I mean, it's even more insane, if you want to call it that. So very little downtime there for a number of years, 10, 12 years after 9/11, whether it be Iraq, Afghanistan. So, but if I had something to do over, one of the things would have been managing and later coaching others and effectively balancing that work-life balance a little bit better than what I did. I take it with me, but I also learn from it. And if I can help other people better manage theirs, that's a win.
I love it. And specifically now during the current times when people are truly struggling in fast-paced world to do that, I feel like that is tremendous gift and opportunity. So guys, definitely look up Tim for those opportunities, because unless you know how to change your not only daily method of operation, but priorities and how to pivot and how to adjust, but never lose the sight of what's the most important, right? That is what I'm finding secret sauce. But what would you say is the secret sauce to balance all of that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there is a secret sauce. Everybody's different. Every family's different. And, each branch of service is way different. As long as it's managed properly and the leadership takes note of what's going on and so forth.
It's interesting. The reason why I'm bringing this up, it's so easy to you because that's your environment and it's already habitual and it's a great habit to have. But for a lot of people that are struggling, they don't know where to start. They quickly give up, or they just simply are spending and investing times in things that are not necessarily bringing the highest return. and helping them in the long run, because I'm seeing a lot of people are having a hard time sustaining different things right now in their environments. And that is really crucially important, isn't it? But what I really wanted to also expand upon, if you don't mind here, Tim, obviously as a Navy SEAL, you've been in a lot of international, that's why you trained to go in international waters. What would you say was one of the culturally most rewarding elements where you felt opportunity also to connect with different cultures, and or just simply places that you traveled through the military or otherwise that made a tremendous impact for you personally?
I'd say, and they all were different and they all were good in their own way. But my favorite locations to where we were working with our partners and non-combat related and so forth would be Australia. I was able to spend a little over a month on the west coast of Australia out in Perth, and then a couple weeks in Sydney, Australia on the east coast. At that time, we were working with Clearance Dive Team 4 out west, brought them with us out east, and still to this day have a lot of great relationships and comms with some of the folks that we work with there, and they're super operators and great family people and so forth. So I'll never forget them, and I look forward to continuing comms with them moving forward. Colombia, I was in Colombia, in and out of that country for roughly a year. I think I was there 11 months as far as the longest duration that I spent there without leaving. So great work there, great friends that we made down there. And the Summit of Americas in 2012 happened. I was the Naval Special Warfare Task Element, OIC, had 20 people that was assigned to protect the president. And obviously we had the maritime environment with any of the routes that would go along there. We had a response time and everything figured out. We could be where we needed to be when we needed to be there and so forth. But great partnerships there, and great experience, and seeing all of the planning and everything that goes into not just protecting our President of the United States, but all of the heads of state throughout South America, Central America, and a portion of the Caribbean within the Southcom AOR.
Wow. I feel, just based on what you just said, that you lived Mission Impossible every day. It's like, because so many variables, so many things to think about it, and so much to use your intellect, your body, your groups, your teammates, and so much to depend on each other. Would you agree that it's like always thrilling and quite intense and dynamic, Mission Impossible making possible by Navy SEALs and teams?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a fun job. I would not have done that job for as long as I did if we didn't have fun. And I have to say, especially on the enlisted side, I mean, that's where our true SMEs are, subject matter experts. That's the snipers, that's the breachers, that's the dive supervisors. Basically, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's the backbone of our community, and everything goes through the enlisted folks, because they're known as the trigger pullers, the door kickers, whatever terms you want to use to describe them. But that's where the action is. And then the officers, yeah, they're responsible for anything and everything that goes on overall. But the personnel that are actually leading the effort on the ground, 9 times out of 10, are those senior enlisted and those enlisted members, team guys, operators. And that's where the super work is. And that's where the fun is. It's more of a managerial / supervisor leadership role within the officers. But make no mistake, the leadership at the senior enlisted level and below, they are the ones that really make things happen within my community. And I'm sure it's the same with our counterparts and all the other services. But that's where the fun's at. That's where that's who's getting the majority of the action. When people hear about Navy SEALs, it's coming from those enlisted personnel, the pipe hitters And that's where the action is.
Wow. So if you don't mind, since you mentioned action, I'm like, what was the one of the most outstanding action moment for you? Like something that you did that was extraordinary, that you were shocked actually how well you did yourself, because I know you push yourself every single day further in terms of endurance and how long you guys can be underwater and the speed and all these crazy stuff. And it's just unbelievable to see how you challenge yourself without panic, without fearing being in deep waters and dark and cold and hot and all of this. So what would you say was the one piece of action that you felt like invincible?
Well, I don't know if anybody ever feels invincible, and I'll keep it in a team type focus instead of individual type focus. You know, and in every environment that you operate in, you've heard me say it a couple of times, it's all different. Things can go from being perfectly normal to not normal at all in a snap of the finger. So things can change. It can just something out of the blue, wrong place, wrong time. It could easily happen to anybody in any unit, especially in a dynamic / combat environment. But you know, whether it be some of the efforts that I was a part of, that I saw in Afghanistan or Iraq, 2006, 2007, 2008, I was in Iraq in those years, all 3 of those years. About 4.5 months in 06, and then went back in September of 07, left probably June of 08. So a lot of different dynamic environments. Karma, Fallujah really rings a bell. It was a hot area, so to speak, as far as a lot of personnel not on our side that was in and around the area to where we were working. So we did a lot of great work without going into much details there. And the team definitely will pull individuals through those types of events. Your buddy watching something that you can't see behind your back, whether it's your swim buddy, battle buddy, combat buddy, whatever. It just, you need that someone that's covering wherever you're not looking. If it's behind you, that's why you have your buddy behind you and or your buddies. And so forth. So I'll keep it at the team level, and but it's just so many different scenarios, and karma really stands out in my mind because I mean we were going from house to house, it seemed like, and on a nightly basis in the 06, 07 timeframe.
Wow, magic happens when we have a great team, doesn't it? And I seems like thank you again. That also says about your leadership. You don't want to just never highlight yourself alone, but I'm sure with your role and what you played and who you were to them, it just also says you don't last 31 years once you're extremely good. So kudos, thank you for your service actually. But also this brings another question that I'm uber curious, and I'm sure everybody watching this are too, and instead of just listening. You have some interesting paintings or pictures just behind you, one on the left and one on the right. Okay, I really would love to start with those frogs. I was like Navy SEAL and bunch of frogs on submarine or on the boat. Tell me first of all what that's all about.
Well, in my community, the SEALs are known as Navy SEALs, but we're also known as frogmen, frogs. There's a lot of types of terms. So in that scenario, it's a SEAL delivery vehicle. We have 2 of those teams, one in Virginia Beach that just came back online last year or so, and one out in Hawaii. In this case, it's the frogmen, just one of my, a senior chief that was at Naval Special Warfare Group 3. He was a painter, he was an artist. And I had this little drawing and I'm like, hey, can you draw this for me? And sure enough, he drew it for me, and he painted that and gave it to me when I left the command out at Group 3 Hawaii and went to SOX out. So I was appreciative of that, but it's basically in this case just the SEALs and the frogmen working in and out of the SEAL delivery vehicle, the mini submersible, and the frogmen are telling the SEALs that even though it's the same group of folks, that we got this. and basically giving out last second details as far as just some things to know as far as the mission. But in a nutshell, that's what that one's about. I got the SOC-R directly, as you're looking at the screen, probably to your right. Special Operations Craft Riverine, that's our special boat team out of Mississippi, Stennis, Mississippi. They do great work in the riverine environment, that team, but you have other boat teams that do great work in the coastal environments in Norfolk, Virginia, and San Diego, Coronado, California. But it's a very powerful boat, a lot of firepower, a lot of different weapon systems in that boat, whether it be in a 2-boat package or a 4-boat package, and a lot of great work in Iraq on the Euphrates and the Tigris River, and up until approximately 2010. So between 06 and 2010, maybe a little before, outstanding work, and I'm sure that the personnel that those boats supported will tell you the same. And then over here, it's a sub that's no longer around, been a long time decommissioned. It's number 1 of, I think, 270. A guy also gave me that picture or that painting when I left Group 3. And it's from the USS Hawkbill. And those former sailors, and they have a USS Hawkbill Association. If any of them's watching it, they're going to probably want to get that picture, because it is number 1 of, it's either 270 or 750 somewhere. But but that's what that one is, and it's no longer around. So memories.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing and telling us those stories, because again, it's just parts of the history and places you've been, but also great pride and everything related to Navy SEALs we want to know. So that's fantastic. But also, I'm sure right now that something major happened last year for you. You transitioned from active duty, and now you are crossing over in civilian world. First of all, let us know how has been that journey for you, during the last leg of COVID, or before we start again reopening back to quote unquote normal, and also really being yourself veteran in transition, helping other veterans. I mean, I'm really fascinated about that, as well as executive production and TV series you've been doing for Jewel TV and as a host and producer. Could you enlighten us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. As far as the transition, there is so much to learn for a person, whether they served 5 years or 40 years in the military, as far as what will translate when you go into the civilian workplace, or you transition into that civilian workplace, vice what you did in the community, whether you were enlisted or officer. Obviously, there's a lot of job sets, and at the executive level, more so for the officers and the senior enlisted, and the more hands-on work for a lot of our enlisted folks. But everybody's transition is different. It's different for me than it is anybody else. So it's a process that, as it approaches, you can never, I don't think, be over-prepared for something that's such a milestone in someone's career, especially when it's pretty much all you did from the time you graduated high school. You got your degree, and while you were in the military and working nights and some long days and nights doing that, especially for the folks that have their advanced degrees. I admire you, especially getting that on service, because I realize how hard that is. But it's just so different, and there's no cookie cutter approach to this transition process, and it's not a one size fits all. There is so many great organizations and nonprofit organizations, and some for profit, that do so much great work in getting a person, again, no matter how long they serve, ready from that transition from military service over to the civilian workplace. And then even with those programs, and then some of them have come light years over the last 5 years, 10 years. There wasn't too many around more than 10 years ago. There was a couple, but we're doing much better now in preparing our folks. But with that, there's still so many seams and there's so many gaps that that I learned every day of a new organization that's doing great work. But I didn't know that the organization even existed yesterday. And just yesterday, as a matter of fact, I spoke with the CEO of the Blue Water Advisors out of Norfolk, Virginia, doing some great work, great vision. And but I didn't know, and it wasn't a part. I may have made it to the list that I sent you, but it didn't make it to on the list that I sent the person before I mailed that list of nonprofits doing all the great work. So that's how dynamic this is. I'm still learning, but I've been doing this a little since I've been getting out, and even before in trying to learn and be prepared for my own transition. And I still am just now hearing about a lot of these organizations and which one is best for me. So imagine what, especially at the non-spec ops commands, the non-officers and the non-senior enlisted, all these great programs that's out there. We need to get some attention on them, what they're doing, how successful they are, and then the military service member that's transitioning out will be able to choose the best one that fits them and their family, wherever they are best suited to attend. There's some great ones out in Montana, Virginia, Florida, California. I can go on and on. So they're sprouting up everywhere, and they're all doing great work. But we need to get as many folks aware of these services, because right now, in my opinion anyway, it's too many people that are not aware or that just came off of a deployment and they have 2 months left in the military. Pick a service, and then 2 months is not enough time to cram all of this knowledge and to really help someone the way that they need to be helped get to the right program or any program. Some people, a lot of people don't even get a program. So Jewel TV, this offer kind of fell in my lap. Tom Julian out in California, he's the president of Jewel TV. He asked me, hey, sent me a text via a message via LinkedIn. Do I want to help out veterans and do a television series late fall or early fall timeframe? And I would like to learn more. So he gave me a little bit more details, and we started coming up with names of the program. And long story short, we ended up Veterans in Transition. But with Veterans in Transition, there's so much more to the name of that series than just a service member that is coming in toward the end of their service and they're getting out. It's Veterans in Transition or service members. I mentioned 9/11, 2001 earlier, and then we were working hard before that. But we were working, and this is not just Navy Special Warfare. This is all the military. We were working very hard after 9/11, and some still to this day are going into, I call them hot areas or combat zones, or the Somalias, the Yemens, the Syrias, and so forth, to where you have to really be careful. You have to watch out for someone or your teammates and your buddies and your partners. So this TV series, we're going to also shed a light and spotlight and highlight some of the great work to when service members come back from combat, whether it's their first tour in combat, in some cases, probably 15, 20, 25. I'm not exaggerating with those numbers with some of the people that are still doing it today. Imagine that every 6 to 9 months, go out 3 months at a time, or on other cycles every year and a half, pretty much from the time you're in, especially if you came in 01 to the current date, every year and a half, work up, sometimes shorter depending on what's going on, and do a 6 month to 9 month, in some cases a year deployment, and do it all over again. Well, some guys, especially, I've lost a lot of friends, I lost a lot of teammates, people that I know, not just in our small community. I think we have about 25 to 2,700 SEALs on active duty right now. It's not many. Now, if you count the reservists, there's a lot more. But even in small communities like mine, we are well over 100 and something people that we've lost, not all since 2001, but a lot in combat, a lot helping other units that needed assistance, lost their life, sometimes helos, multiple helos lost, and but in training and so forth, because we train, it's a realistic training environment. It's the only way you can prepare for various combat. I mean, you got to train in realistic scenarios and be as real as possible, or it's not going to do people any good. But getting some attention on these people and these programs that are available when people are just, in some cases, not ready to be transitioned back into their community, and transition when they come back from a dynamic type environment. And it depends on a number of factors, what happened, whether there are a lot of people that you work with were lost on that deployment. So there's so many factors that go into it. But the point there is not everyone is ready to immediately, as soon as that type of deployment is over, transition back into their community without any hiccups or within to their family. So there's programs, and some people need service dogs, service animals, horses. There's a great program out in Montana that uses horses. The service member or veteran takes care of the horses, and then vice versa. The horse does a lot for those members. There's a lot of good analysis and data that support that program. There's some nature programs, and it's not for everybody, but getting the operators back into nature, and some of the things that's observed and that they can do for them with some of these nonprofits that have put a lot of study into their efforts, and they do great things. So you got nature, you got surf therapy. One more wave out in San Diego. Again, it's not for the non-surfers unless you want to learn surfing, but for the surfers and for the people that get peace out in the ocean in early morning, late evening, at sunset, whenever. It does great things for them, and they do great work. Again, it's not for everybody. You got all of the different service dogs, Sierra Delta up in Wisconsin, K9s for warriors, and then so many more. And please forgive me if the list is definitely not all inclusive, because all of them are doing super work. I just can't name them all off the top of my head. But I do have that list, and I share that list, and it's a very long list with as many people as possible where they know. And then you have just basically depending on there's so many programs out, but whatever a person needs, they need to get sent in the right direction to the right program that's best for them, their situation, and their family. But it takes a lot of people because not everybody knows about these programs even existing. So guiding some people, especially when you have limited time to do so before they transition out or before they immediately get linked back up to their family or community before being ready. So hope that answered your.
Yes, it definitely does. And I'm so glad you're excited about so many different programs that you also gathered the data information. But I'm curious, when is the series starting and when they're going to be debuted so that others can view it, and then they can see what tremendous, beautiful work it's been done in all those different types of parts of the country with different types of therapy or additional support.
Well, I think I'm still working on putting the schedule together, and everything will be centered on the schedules and availabilities and key events that these nonprofits that we're showcasing and highlighting. It's going to center on when they're available. So once I get all of the different nonprofit schedules that I'm working with, and the comms are somewhat flowing, it could be better on probably both sides, but getting those schedules, I'll get the 10-week schedule out to be approved by Tom Julian in California. And then we hope to be filming, recording early, late fall. And then it's not going to take long to get the filming and recording out of the way. And the goal is to have the series, 10-show series. Right now it's a 30-minute show, 22 minutes after advertising per show. We have the ability to go an hour, but we're looking at it airing late fall, early winter at the latest.
That's fantastic. So then we all can expect some amazing new footage and information next year, I'm assuming. So that is fantastic, and I'm so glad that you are going in such a great ways in the new adventures and new ventures. And it's also a great example of what's possible. So when we have the willingness and interest and desire, where's the will, there is the way. You're going to now literally be executive producer and host and build it, bringing everybody together. So everybody, guys, watch and listen, because you don't have to be stuck and feel like, oh my God, what do I do? You can always apply your skill sets in many new ways. So I am also curious. I really have to say, you have a really cool name of your club, where you're also ambassador, where you're also helping people in transition, also networking through the Warriors and Whiskey Club. Okay, you have to tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, you have the Warriors and Whiskey Club.
Oh,
You have Veterans Whiskey Club, and you have the Veterans Cigar Club.
oh my God.
The two clubs are for service members and veterans. But the Warriors and Whiskey Club, and anyone that is interested in signing up for any veteran or service member that wants to join the two veterans clubs, can join on Facebook, LinkedIn. There's groups for it, and so forth. The website, will figure out a way to where everybody will have that website that is watching and tuning into the podcast. But what the Warrior and Whiskey Club is, any service member, veteran, first responder, family of first responders, veterans, and the service members. So basically anybody can join the Warriors and Whiskey Club, whether veteran or service member centric. But the whole point behind any of those clubs or all of those clubs is to bring people together. And that can be the service members, but it's definitely tailored toward the veterans. When they get out, they no longer have that teammate. They're no longer based out in Coronado, and in some cases may not live out there any longer. And same thing with Virginia Beach, but just pick an area wherever our major bases are. You have a huge number of folks that when they're done, they go back to Montana, they go to Texas, they go to Iowa. And in a city and state near you, there's probably an ambassador or soon to be new ambassador that is being appointed by the three founders of these clubs. And the whole point is to bring people together, be able to get there safely. It does involve alcohol, involves cigars, so be able to get to and from whatever function we set up, wherever we set it up safely. But bring people together. They can share, see old friends, old teammates, old battle buddies, combat buddies, and just communicate with each other. Bring the families, and hopefully, if somebody were to show up that has a problem, it gets noticed by people or someone that's also attending that like something's just not right, and we can get help and sent in or figure out a creative way to help that person or personnel that maybe needs assistance. But you would never know that if you didn't bring everybody together in the first place. So that's the main intent behind it, and then have a good time. Families share their stories, see stories, funny stories, and then the events and how the events are set up. It's called Warriors and Whiskey, Veterans Whiskey, but you can do it at a brewery. You can do it with beer. You can do it with anything that you want. Again, it's bringing people together is the gist behind it, and that's where that we get the most bang for our buck and help anybody that needs assistance. But it's good for people mentally to be able to see people that they've lost comms with. And not everybody stays where they were stationed at for the number of years, remember how long they stayed in. So it's missed. I miss a lot of my teammates that a lot are still up in Virginia, Coronado, but it's around the globe and definitely throughout the U.S. But we are expanding. We hope to grow it a lot more. And at the end of the day, bring people together, have fun, and you can't go wrong there.
I love that. And I love that right now, specifically when we have a chance to be face to face, we have opportunity, as you said, to see each other and truly check in. How is everybody doing? Because you and I know too well that so many people are not, and specifically mentally, right? And sadly, we also know the very grim statistics, how many, unfortunately, people due to major distress and mental health issues that are being not properly served or targeted or supported. People also attempt to commit suicide or commit to suicide, and it's way too many to see people after such a tremendous service to be gone. So first of all, I kudos you again for stepping up, bringing communities together, making difference and impact, and finding a way and outlets to do so. So everybody, again, we'll have those links so you can check that on Facebook, and also can directly connect with Tim and other platforms, and really, really step up and support, as well as obviously share some of your stories, right? But in closing, Tim, you've been in so many different places, obviously through this service as a Navy SEAL of 31 years. And now with everything that you wanted to apply in this new world of civilian world, what is in your bucket, and what is next to be accomplished? Since, like, for someone who already has tremendous legacy that you lived and led with, what is in there still left that you wanted to do?
Well, I will always, regardless of what my next job is, when I get my next full-time job, there's several things that are being discussed right now and that I'm looking into. But no matter what I end up doing, I will always try to figure out a way to where if there's a service member that I can help, or that gets sent in my direction, or just by chance I come across someone and they have any questions that I may be able to answer, or give them advice or guidance, or nothing else, lessons that I learned the hard way in some cases. And then so I'll always be able to help out, whether it be others that were in similar lines of service before they're in that job, sitting around the office, or sitting around the gun range, whatever I end up doing, that will always be part of it. I will find creative ways to try to help out veterans, service members, and just people in general, that if I can help them, while also doing what it takes to take very good care of my family as well. So a number of things that I can't go in, don't want to go into much detail. They're still being planned and worked out, but definitely part of it is helping others any way that I can. And then I'll say, for anybody that is listening that wants to be a Navy SEAL, or anything that you want to be for that matter, you just have to have the mindset of never quit. And then if you can do the physical test, that meet the physical requirements, whatever entry requirements that a program has. In our case, in the SEALs, we had certain time that you had to run 1.5 miles. At one time, I think it was 3 miles. Had to do a certain number of pull-ups and so forth, sit-ups, push-ups, and swim, obviously. But if you can do that test to get in, then you can complete that course. Yeah, it gets harder as you progress through the program or the curriculum, whatever you want to refer to it as, but never quit. But anybody can do it as long as you can do the test to get in. So I wanted to throw that out for anybody that may be interested in joining the Navy and trying to help the Navy's recruiting effort a little bit.
That's fantastic, and such a great attitude and great advice, because so many people, young people, are having these dreams. They just don't know how to go about. So that's fantastic advice. And do you mind, lastly, just share, as I mentioned already, you lived and you led already a tremendous legacy. But how would you like to leave your legacy? How would you like to be remembered? What is now, when all of this experience and maturity and understanding how worlds work and what's the most important, what would be the most important for you?
Yeah, I guess just being known as helping others and being successful at helping others, not just talking someone's ear off per se, as far as and not providing any value, but providing value to others, and at the end of the day, helping as many people as I can, whether that be something that we touched on earlier in the teams, and better balancing the work, family, life balance. That needs to be balanced out as close to 50-50 as possible, not 10-90. I'd hate for it to be even worse than that. But just, that people need help with that because it's so hard. You don't want to shortchange your family. No, not many people do. But you also don't want to shortchange your work. You probably won't progress as much as you do, or as much as you would like. So just finding opportunities, and they're available, and people need it, whether they're dealing with the Veterans Administration, or whether it's just dealing with the college and trying to get them to accept your GI Bill. There's just so many ways, getting them into the right program transition wise, or when the transition don't go well, then getting back on track, because there is so many people that need that. But that's something that an individual can't really do. Teams and teams of people, and in cities across America and states across America, is the only way to do that right. But with platforms such as yours, with the wide-ranging audience that you have, I mean, it's a great start, and so forth. But taking advantages of these types of situations and getting attention where that attention needs to be, and filling in the gaps and seams wherever they exist, especially if it can be something that's negative that can come from those gaps and seams being present. So I'd say that, as far as more than anything, just be remembered as a nice person in general, but someone that helps others, and that's successful, not just wasting somebody's time, because you're just spinning wheels if that's what happens. So
yeah, making an impact, making positive impact in lives of others, which obviously you already been doing for decades. I'm sure it's not going to be any more challenging or difficult, because you already know how to do that. So again, absolute pleasure for having you on the Legacy Leader Show and sharing with us. And thank you so much for all that you do, not only to keep us all safe and through your service, but you continue to support and do right now through civilian efforts. So we look forward to having you down the road, checking in with you where things are headed. And I cannot wait to see and share some more of your civilian successes.
Well, thank you. And thanks to everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to listen to me. I really appreciate it. And hope everyone has a good evening, or wherever you're at, a good day, good night. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Legacy Leader Show. If you enjoyed the content and had a positive experience, then please leave us a positive rating. In addition, leave us a positive review whenever you are listening on whatever platform there might be. Make sure your friends and family also know about the benefit and value that we provide and what we have to offer. Cheers.